So once again, thanking you all for joining us this evening and thanking our speaker for coming through to speak to us today in our Innovation Boot Camp, the second cycle for 2021. The EFO Impact Foundation is a spin-off of the Catholic University of Milan, where the graduate business school teamed up with a group of corporates to be able to dedicate their passion, their finances and resources to promote impact entrepreneurship. We're very passionate about creating a new generation of impact entrepreneurs in all sectors. And we partner with local universities in each of the 20 countries that we are in. And we create a leading voice in entrepreneurship through our programs that we run, that is in the MBA level, certificate level, and through our workshops on entrepreneurs and our webinars such as this one that you are attending today. We want to promote developing strong collaborations through partnerships and creating market relations with companies that are in other continents, and especially with our impact entrepreneurs that we're working with on the ground. The advantages of the EFO Impact family is that we are passionate about creating platforms in every level of the ecosystem that an entrepreneur works in and survives in. So we are keen to work with institutions, organizations, angel investors that maximize the opportunity to scale and grow your business by availing financial support. So we've practically provided a maximum investment of 2.5 million up to date. And we are building a strong alumni, as I speak, of more than 2,000 entrepreneurs that have started new businesses, that have got access to this finance to grow and scale their businesses. We're passionate about accelerating businesses and building visions that are at idea stage, at startup stage, and at growth stage. So our alumni, the aim is to hold boot camps within our educational programs that grow your strategy and business model, business campus model. And we have boot camps that focus on growing a strong go-to-market model, boot camp that focuses on growing a strong, sustainable financial model. And finally, the final boot camp is where you are pitching to investors. Our modules are delivered by very experienced and passionate professors and faculties from international level and on the local level with our local partner universities carrying out the modules as they're accredited by the regulator. The client base of our alumni has grown with examples of alumni that have grown their businesses into 3 or 4 countries and increasing their job creation capacity from 5 employees to as much as 58 employees. So we're looking at creating strategic partnership sealed after our MBA program, our certificate program, and our webinars and workshops. Those are the advantages of joining our EFO Impact family. Our programs are very flexible, noting that entrepreneurs go through a lot. So we have a blended approach where we have face-to-face lectures and live lectures and distance learning material online. So we encourage a very practical approach with actionable tools through the boot camps where you come in and you actually apply what you learn. And at every end of the boot camp, we have a pitch event, the way you are able to pitch to an investor on your go-to-market model, your finance model, your strategy model. The entrepreneurs also experience a coaching and mentoring program. This allows you to experience the MBA with ease as you work with experienced people who have gone through the same experiences. Mentorship is a way of making very expensive mistakes. So we have a business coach in all our programs who works with the entrepreneurs, and our business coaches have a strong leaning on financials so that we build a strong financial model. This is coming from research that most entrepreneurs struggle with their numbers, and when they come before an investor, they cannot tell their financial story. So we encourage linkages on a local level, a regional level, and an international level with our Italian business partners who are working with us, and through our embassies and all the relevant institutions in the nonprofit sector, we are able to link local partners to develop their business having access to investors locally, regionally, and internationally. We also have our B2B fair in Milan, which happens every year. Unfortunately, because of COVID, our last B2B fair was in 2019. So we are able to you're able to meet your fellow alumni from the other countries. You're able to meet the business community in Milan. So come through and get a dual accreditation from our programs in partnership with our partners. You can also have access to gaining a diploma from the Catholic University of Milan in Italy. We're excited to share with you the fact that we have new editions coming on board in the different countries that we are on. If the country that you are in is not exhibited here, please go into our chat box and state which country you're on. Someone will respond and give you details. We have program leaders who run our programs in the partner universities. In Ethiopia, you can talk to Mekedela. There's an MBA edition starting in October, which has started in October 2021 at St. Mary's University. Tangaza University College is starting a new edition in October 2021. Contact Jegetule. Contact Yusuf in Sudan in December. A new edition is starting at the University of Medical Science and Technology. The University of Professional Studies in Ghana. Please contact Andrews. He will be able to assist you to register and enroll for the MBA. In Zimbabwe, please contact Dennis Matandaware, who's able to assist you to join the 4th edition that's starting in February 2021. And in Mozambique, our 2nd edition is starting in February 2021. Please contact eBay to be able to join our programs and join the family that wants to build impact entrepreneurs that are able to create jobs and strengthen economies. So that's EFO Impact in a nutshell. I'll stop sharing my screen. And if you have any questions, like I said, please go to our chat box and be able to share your question and someone respond. And if you have any questions for our speaker, the last 15 minutes of this webinar is a question and answer session where you'll be able to ask her any questions on your mind. So I will share a brief introduction of our speaker and allow her to pick up from there. Tsitsi Mutendi is a family business and family office advisor for NACA Legacy Planning, and she's a co-founder of African Family Firms, African Business Association. She's also an enterprising person in carrying out family podcasts and is also an author. I've been reading some of her articles in the last weekend. I've greatly been enlightened by some of the aspects she's brought out in terms of business and doing business as a family. She's a well-versed, award-winning businesswoman with over 12 years experience building her own successful businesses and has been recognized globally for her business acumen and world-class delivery. I know her as well as a mentor of note, having worked with her on a mentorship program. And many business development strategies that she has been exposed to in Africa, she will share tonight as a certified family business advisor and wealth advisor in the work that she's doing with the African family business transition. She's also an alumni of the Fortune US State Department Global Women's Mentoring Program, the member of the African Leadership Network, and Athena 40 speaker, and she owns and runs a group of Montessori primary school. Most importantly, Tsitsi is a wife and a mom, and she cherishes her 3 children who have given her motivation to build and leave an impactful legacy. Tsitsi, I want to welcome you this evening and thank you once again for joining us. Okay, she's sending a message now. Her Wi-Fi has dropped and we must give her a few minutes to join us. So while we wait for her, I will share some statistics on family businesses. The research shows that 70%, 90%, especially from the USA, 90% in most continents, 90%, and especially from 90% of families, family-owned businesses are very successful. It also then shows that 70% of family-owned businesses usually fail when the second generation takes over. only 10% of these family businesses succeed into the third generation. So we're here tonight to engage Tsitsi to tell us how can we raise that 10% where the third, fourth, and fifth generation can carry on building the legacy for the next generation. I think she's back. Tsitsi, we welcome you, and I'll hand over to you to pick up from
this. Thank you so much, Bertha. Can you hear me?
Very clearly, thank you.
Okay, so I am currently joining from my phone while I try to reboot my computer. Then you'll see me pop back up on video. I'll just change devices. I'm so sorry about that. I've just got a few slides that I wanted to share that are on my computer, and my network has just been giving me a bit of an upset.
That's all right.
Well, thank you everyone for joining me today, and thank you so much for showing up. I know it's late in some parts of the world right now, but thank you for joining me. So I'm going to be sharing with you about family businesses, and like Bertha rightly said, the transition from founder to next gen is a very difficult one for most businesses, and globally only 30% make it from the founder to the next gen. However, you find that there is that lapse when we do our entrepreneurial training where we don't really speak to the transition that happens between the founder going on to the next gen. Let me just swap the sizes. Can you hear me loud and clear on this device?
Yes, we can hear you. There's a bit of an echo though. Maybe you might need to mute the other. Great, there you are.
Yeah, sorry guys. So as I was saying, there is that transition from founder to next gen globally at 30%. Most family businesses don't make it. So that means 70% of family businesses fail to transition from the founder gen to the next gen. Equally so, you find that most family businesses on the planet make up for at least 85% and above of global GDP, which is quite shocking to most people because they believe that family businesses are just the mom and pop stores. Yes, family businesses start off as mom and pop stores. They start off as the small entrepreneurs that have big dreams for their product or their service or for their family's financial future. And then they grow into these big corporates and conglomerates that span different continents, countries, and become global entities. And I'm sure if you think very deeply, and you don't even have to go too far, you know, family businesses that run in your own country that are quite big and are known across the country, but they started from humble beginnings. What then causes that disconnect that stops family businesses and entrepreneurs such as yourself who have great companies and great ideas from becoming multi-generational? First, let's discuss why it's important to become multi-generational. We all build on foundations, and when there is a steady foundation, we can build anything really. More so when we're building industries and when we're building certain professions or certain thought processes, we have to build on the success of others. So if there is a strong foundation and there's a family business that has supplied a country or a community for many, many years, they're obviously not supplying the same thing they've been supplying all these years, but they grow. They grow in their skills, they grow in their expertise, and they grow in their influence. And when this happens, you find that countries are built to be stronger with stronger economies and have stronger expertise in certain areas. This happens because that multi-generational is that passing on of intellectual capital, that passing on of human capital that goes from strength to strength. The things that people don't see about wealth, people don't see about family businesses, is that family businesses, the reason why they're so successful, and they are much more successful than just businesses that are set up without the family component, their businesses, the family businesses are the ones that actually can make it into multi-generational businesses because they have something to protect. They have the family name, they have the family reputation, and they have the family legacy. So they are driven to want to protect that, and they also want to protect the wealth that the family has amassed. And when you look at family businesses and you're thinking, well, that sounds great, but then what then happens when they fall apart? Well, I'm a third generation family business member. And when I say third generation, I mean third generation. Both my grandparents from both sets of my family were family business owners. They owned businesses back in the early days of colonialism, and they had general dealers within the communities that they served, and they became quite wealthy. So my parents grew up in families that were business owners. Unfortunately, both sides of my grandparents failed to transcend their family businesses. My parents did not inherit anything from those family businesses. And I'll tell you why just now. And then my parents, they went into the medical field, both of them in their separate ways. They went into the medical field and they became quite successful. And they started up a series of consultancies across Zimbabwe, which is my home country. And so I grew up traveling a lot with my parents as they were going from business to business and growing their consultancies. But alas, like a family business, that also failed. And then I am now a family business owner. I have a publishing company that's 12 years old, and I have a Montessori primary school that's 4 years old. How did I get into family business advising? I got into family business advising when my dad passed on, and then I was appointed the executive of his estate, and I had to then go in and make sure that his estate was wrapped up well. His death was a sudden one. No one was expecting it. And he was a very educated man. However, there wasn't a will. First big problem with a family business. You don't have a will, you don't have an estate plan. You have no plans beyond yourself as the family leader. You have no plans beyond yourself as the family founder. So going in and trying to sort out his estate was a very hard task. As a child, I was trying to, at the same time, make sure that I honor my father's legacy and then navigate the complexities because I have siblings. My mother, who is my dad's legal wife, I had only one sibling, but there were other siblings that came from other marriages that was on community, and siblings that came before my dad was actually married to my mom. And so all of a sudden it became complex. The legal framework of our country protects the rights of all the children. So that means already you have that complexity of making sure that all the children are entitled to the estate and there is no will in place. As a family business owner, this can be a very tragic situation. That takes me back to why the other family businesses, the first generation, my grandparents' family businesses failed. On my paternal side, the family business failed because after my grandfather had a heart attack and he died on the spot one sunny morning, his son was my oldest uncle in my dad's family. Well, traditionally, he decided he's now the father of the home and he took over the estate and he kicked everybody off the estate. And I know a lot of people are familiar with such stories. You've all heard it, you've all witnessed it, and some of you have even gone through it, where everything that has been built, the vast estates, the wealth, the cars, the assets, everything, you have family members that start squabbling for it, and you get family members that get kicked off the estate. All of a sudden, there is that disintegration of everything. And I think in most languages, we have sayings that speak to legacies falling apart simply because people as families couldn't get along. On my maternal side of the family, it was a divorce that caused the breakup of the estate. And my grandfather, obviously, he took the estate and he tried to move on with his life. But because he forgot the human capital element of what makes family businesses work, that also fell apart. So it fell to me now as a family business owner to start thinking, what is my legacy going to be? What is it going to look like? As an entrepreneur, I've been building my family businesses. I'm in partnership with my husband. I have 3 children. What is their legacy going to be when I'm no longer there? I'm building these businesses, I'm passionate about them, but does that really make sense? What's really going to happen? That's when I fell into a rabbit hole, which we call family business advising, and I came across family governance. I know you've all probably heard about corporate governance and how important it is to have corporate governance within your business. And it is very important because it is what helps to get that trust from people who may want to invest in your business. But family governance is one of the strongest and most important roles when it comes to family businesses. And you might be wondering what family governance is. Family governance comes in very different formats, and it depends on the family. Family governance is not going to be the same with every single family. Yes, there is a framework. Yes, there is recommended ways of running it. But what's truly important when it comes to family governance is the communication. So I'm going to share with you some of why family governance is important. Let me just share my screen quickly. First thing I'm going to share is what we call the three-circle model when it comes to family businesses. Family businesses are very complex. So as an entrepreneur, you must know that your business is extremely complex, and you can't avoid or neglect the different areas that impact your business, because you might get all the other things right, but if you don't understand how this model works, it may cause the collapse of your business later on in the future. The three-circle model looks at the family business system in three distinct circles, as you see: the ownership circle, the business circle, and the family circle. Now, these three circles work together, and they work together in ensuring that your family business is successful. So you might be wondering, right, what does that mean? What does that look like? Right. What does that mean? It means that in these three circles where you have the ownership sometimes, especially when you get investors who come into your family business, the ownership might comprise of people who are non-family members, but who work for the family business and who own shares in the family business, or who have invested ownership because of equity that they have in the family business. Now, therefore, right about here, they're non-family, and here they're the ones that are non-family, but are owners, but work for the business. These ones are non-family, they don't work for the business, but they're owners. Then you have your business. Your business houses those people who are non-family members as well. They're just non-family members and they work for the business. Their sole focus is making sure that they perform at their best at the role that they've been given to support the business and make sure that the business works. Here you have also sometimes family members that are also encroaching into the business because they're employed by the business. They might be employed by the business because you found that their skills were necessary for a certain element of the business and you brought them in, and now they are overlapping from the business and into the family. So there is that relationship that lies right here. Then you have sometimes family members who are just family members who have no invested participation in the business and no invested participation in ownership, but they make up part of the three-circle model because they have push and pull factors to those family members that might be in the family business, and they may also have push and pull factors to family members that are owners of the business. So this is something that most people don't seem to understand, but I'll try to explain it as easily as possible. Sometimes you can be a family member or even an inheritor or someone who has shares within the family business, but you don't work for the family business and you are just an owner. You just have shares. You reap the dividends of being part of the family because you have ownership rights in the family business. Now, most entrepreneurs, when we start out, we are family, we are owners, and we are employees. So you work for the business, you own the business, and you're part of the family. When it comes to decision making, All three of these circles, no matter where they lie, impact how the business will turn out. And the strongest impact comes from the family. As you see, the family has got a lot more moving pieces when it comes to the business itself and how it impacts the business. And in most cases, when family businesses fail, what causes them to fail is because there is no family governance in place. Family governance is what dictates how the family corresponds to the business and what the family has agreed to when it comes to corresponding to the business. Now, African families have a lot of dynamics. The dynamics that we face in African families are the issue of patriarchy or matriarchy hierarchy, that older person in the business who might be the founder, who has a lot of vested interest in the business and controls a lot of what happens within the family itself, which then pushes onto the decisions that are made within the business. A second intricacy or complexity is James Bond leadership. I think we're all very familiar with James Bond and how he operates. Now, when you have a James Bond leader who is the be-all and end-all of the family business, you have a major problem because he's not sharing his secrets or his methodologies, or she's not sharing her secrets and methodologies. And if you take out James Bond, the family business falls apart because everything was reliant on that person knowing what is going on, when it's going on, how it's going on. That can be very dangerous for a family business because there is no support system and there is no plan for continuity. Our complex cultures on the African context also push heavily onto how we run our family businesses, our reactions to what happens within the family businesses. For example, the complex culture where we say certain family members inherit, certain family members don't inherit based on certain aspects of the cultures that worked pre-family business ownership or worked many years ago when it was a totally different world. Another complexity when it comes to family businesses in Africa is our history. We come from a very difficult and hard history. And understanding how our history impacts our family businesses is always very important. I could go into depth with that, but then it will take me the whole day. I would just encourage you to probably go into our website, africanfamilyfirms.org, and watch some of the webinars that we have done on African history and how it affects the African family business. Religion also is another complex issue that affects family businesses on the continent, as well as multi-dimensional families anchored on honor culture. Honor culture is the way of interaction that we use on the continent where we honor our elders, and sometimes our next gen don't really get the opportunity to speak out against issues that might impact the family business. And when they do, it's a little too late in the governance framework and things are about to fall apart. Then we look at localized philanthropy, SG models, firstborn inheritance models, and next-gen isolation, which I touched when I was talking about complex multidimensional families. That really impacts our family businesses. How does it impact family businesses? Because when we don't have governance, we don't have a way of communicating and allowing each other to work together towards the common goal of the family. So you can imagine, I think most people on the African continent are familiar with the game of football or soccer, depending on where you live and what you call it. When we have a team that is on our soccer pitch, we want to make sure that the team scores and wins the game. But if our team doesn't know which position, team members don't know which position they are playing, and they don't know where they're scoring and who they're passing to, you find that there is a huge gap. And there's the possibility of the team losing the game or the team being disqualified completely. That is what happens when there is no family governance, when there is no structure and framework as to how we communicate, what channels we communicate through, and why we communicate in that way. And what will we be communicating about? These are some of the goals of family governance. Family governance encourages dialogue. how do we speak to each other? Are we speaking to each other? Are we speaking to each other about the right things within the family? Because if we don't speak about it at home and make sure that everything is in line with our team before we hit the soccer pitch, somebody's going to make a mistake, and that's going to impact the transition of the family business. We need to understand also the demarcation of ownership and management. Remember those circles? We need to understand who falls under what circle, and we need to be clear within the family and agree to it, as into who is allowed to do what, when, and why, and what do we do when we overlook it or somebody does something that they were not supposed to do. How do we fix it as a family? Then we also have to look at planning and policy making within the family. Not having a will is not a good idea. Not having the right structures in place to protect your wealth as a family is not a good idea. You always have to be planned ahead. As we have known from the adage, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. As a family, it's important for us to sit down and have conversations. They might seem like difficult ones, and especially conversations around money. Most people avoid those topics, but when you're building a business and the focus is going to be about the financial stability of the family, we need to understand and agree on what are the ways that we want to grow the business, what are the investments we're going to make, who owns what and why, and what is the way forward when we can't get along. What's also important when it comes to family governance is managing assumptions and expectations. We sometimes have expectations based on, oh, my dad owns a business, so that means automatically I am going to be an inheritor. That is not always the case. There's sometimes where owners of business decide not to give certain people their shares. And there's sometimes an expectation that, oh, because we own the family business, I'm going to work for the family business. There's sometimes where you can't work for the family business because you're not qualified to work for the family businesses. And you might not go in there and become CEO, but you start off right at the bottom because the family business appreciates the fact that you have to grow within the ranks to get the respect of all the other employees and also earn your place within the business. All these things have to be decided by the family because as the multiple generations start growing into the family, you're going to face these issues. And then adopting rules for potentially contentious issues. I think that just covers everything that I've just said. Managing conflict is very important for the family to know what is conflict, identify it, and be able to find ways in which they manage it within the family so it doesn't spill over into the family business. To put everything together, why is family business and family governance important in family business? Because when you look at your family business as you're growing it now, you're just thinking it's yourself or yourself and your spouse or yourself in the context that I am the founder, I am growing my family business. When we say multi-generational, you must look at that. When your family business goes to second gen, it will be a sibling partnership. So if you have one or two kids or more, they will be forced partners within this family business because it has fallen to them. And it depends on the relationship they have, the relationship you help them nurture as you are growing your family business while you're still there. And that is important because it will work out as into how they run the family business as a team, whether they work within the family business or they hire employees to do the work and they just become family owners. But what everybody's looking for is going multi-generational. And when we think of multi-generational past the sibling partnership, we're looking at the cousin consortium. So picture this, me and my husband own a business. We are the founders. Our children, the three of them, they become sibling partnership. But if they have 5 children each, we have 15 cousins that are owners of the same family business. Have they grown the family business to the point that they can all benefit financially from it, because it can't stay the same size it was when it was still catering for just 3 siblings, or when it was just me and my husband catering for our 3 children. The family business has to grow. It can only grow through the human capital that is the family implementing and learning and being agile and putting into practice family governance and communication and putting into structure family governance tools like the family council, as well as the family constitution, as well as making sure that the family assembly meets regularly. And obviously, last but not least, it's so important for our continent for us to have multi-generational families, because as we grow the industries, as we grow the spaces that we want to be known and that we want to develop, we have to grow one brick on top of the other. If every time a family has to start in an industry and there's no previous knowledge or experience, it means that we're continuously blowing up our own foundation and having to start at the bottom over and over again. And our industries do not grow in the way that we would expect them to grow. I hope that gives you a brief overview, although a bit in depth, about family businesses, why they're so important, and why family governance is the pinnacle of success when it comes to multi-generational businesses.
Thank you very much, Tsitsi. Very insightful. I mean, I was nodding my head all the way and thinking, wow. I specifically appreciated the way you've linked it to how family business have a capacity to impact an economy and an industry and sectors. So I think to a certain extent, for me, I was like, okay, I've never really in depth thought of it. You know, when you start a family business or a husband and wife, maybe you're starting from a need, responding to a need, increasing your capacity in terms of your finances and acquiring certain goals. But I think the real impact to build generational businesses is to think of it in terms of impacting your economy and your industry. So thank you. That stood out for me. So we've got 12 minutes to respond to some questions. I'm looking in the chat box. We had some questions that were sent before. I'm looking in the chat box. I'll keep checking if there are any questions. But the first questions that I'll throw at you, Tsitsi, is the fact that the most popular one, which I'll combine, what exactly makes it a family business? Is it purely ownership? Is it about shareholding, or is it about managing the business? So that's a question that we got from Botswana. What exactly makes it a family business? Is it purely ownership, or that is shareholding, or is it about family managing the business? So, you know, that I think you've touched on it, but let's just emphasize it a little bit more by answering that.
So by definition, family businesses are any businesses that have 25% and above shareholding in a single family. So when you say a single family, it could be multiple family members that have shareholding within the same business, but the total accumulative is over 25%. And that usually is, in most businesses, controlling equity in a business, and it has very high voting stakeholders. Most family businesses, when people think family businesses, they just think, oh, it's probably a couple that started the business, or it can be one family member. It could be multiple family members. It could be myself partnering up with with a friend of mine who's not part of my family, but because we own 50 and 50% shareholding, it is a family business essentially that is owned between two families. And if one of the families potentially have issues, you find that it will snowball and affect the other family. So anything that's 25% and above owned by a single family collectively is a family-owned business.
Great. We cannot leave without answering this one. How do you set boundaries when starting a business with your spouse? How do you set boundaries when starting a business with your spouse?
Well, that goes to that conversation around governance. Governance is conversation and agreements based on those conversations that at some point then become legally frameworked. But it's that sitting down and having a conversation. Why are we starting this business? Why is this business important? How do we handle ourselves in front of our employees when we go and face them? Boundaries depends on what type of boundaries you're talking about. Is this on a professional level or on a personal level? How have you defined your relationship? Because how you define your relationship also then runs over into how you're going to relate to each other in all different other sectors. People negate the fact that our relationships, regardless of what they look like, have got an overlapping factor. So you might say, oh, we have a great professional relationship, but our personal relationship doesn't really, it's a bit skewed. Trust me, it's going to translate that one day when you're both angry and you have to make a decision or something has happened that triggers, you're going to relapse into certain habits. So it's very important to be very clear to define how do we relate to each other when it comes to this. And you have to then maintain that agreement because it's so important when it comes to family business. And the one thing that I always encourage people to remember is this. Would you go into the bank and allow anybody to just take your money and throw it around? No. If you wouldn't allow that, why would you allow somebody to go into your family business and throw it around? Because anything that impacts your family business is impacting your money. It is the one source of finance for a lot of families, and anything that threatens that source of finance means that you will no longer have that source of finance available to you.
Great. Our next question is, I think you talked about finance, which is very critical. And I think one mentor that I work with mentioned that, I think it's actually Mr. Nigel Chanakira, who said, when he starts off deciding who to partner with in business, be it family, friend, or an expert, professional in the same industry, he gauges and to a certain extent investigates how they spend their own money in their own personal space. And because he believes that translates into the workspace as well. Which leads me to my question of a very interesting topical issue that has been there in the last, I think last year or so. How do we balance between work funds and black tax? How do we balance, as a question from Tapiwa in Zimbabwe, how do we balance between work funds and black tax? Maybe we need to define black tax in the first place for understanding.
So I have a very interesting relationship with the word black tax. I know people like to throw it around quite a bit, and I feel this, and this is my personal opinion, that how we define black tax is based on influence that has come to us that has made us feel bad for African philanthropy. So when we look at philanthropy, we look at it as in the big foundations giving out money and helping the less advantaged than them. And we clap our hands because we think, wow, this is incredible. However, on the continent of Africa, philanthropy has been part of our everyday lives for all of our lives for as long as we have known. And we don't give because we have extra to give. We give even when we have little and none to give at all. And it has been translated to black tax to make us feel bad for helping each other, for making us feel bad for building out our relationships and giving opportunities to other people. And then when we start giving out these opportunities, we feel angry and bitter. But the truth is, philanthropy is when we give other people, when we don't have to, when we give other people because we want to see them do better. And when you make any philanthropic decision, it has to be based on a little bit of research and a little bit of common sense, obviously, just like a big foundation would do before it gives money out for grants. So if you feel like, oh, my money is going to somewhere where it's never going to see the light of day, it's not going to really give any benefit, then you have a choice to say, no, I am not giving out money. And so when it comes to black tax, the conversation should really be around, as somebody who is giving, am I making informed decisions in my giving? Is my giving going to be long-term impactful? And how does this work out? And okay, I got a bit passionate there, forgot the first part of the question. What was the first part of the question?
Yes, the balance between work funds and black tax. And maybe you could also touch on the question, which is quite similar from Kenya. How does one balance managing a family business and meeting financial demands and needs of the family members? So I think I appreciate the angle you've given on black tax, and maybe that balance that we're talking about with work funds, we could respond to the question, how does one balance between managing family business and meeting financial demands of the needs of the family members?
You have to learn how to manage money, full stop. you have to learn how to manage money. They will always come in life pressures on where to put your money. That's why we work harder or we work smarter to start making more money so that we can even out our financial situations and be able to live comfortably financially. So when you have a situation where you have more financial needs than you have money, then your thought process should be around, how can I manage my money to be able to meet my financial needs? Do I have to rethink some of the financial decisions that we're making? And how can I increase my income to meet the demands that are upon me financially? Because at the end of the day, when you start a business, you are exchanging goods and services for some sort of income. Is your business making enough money for you to be able to maintain the lifestyle you're living, or do you need to audit your lifestyle? They will always come financial pressures. And I think that is why we go into business, to be able to alleviate ourselves financially. But the hard thing about being an entrepreneur is a lot of the time you're making a lot of sacrifices while you're building the business, and the money might not come in as fast and as soon as it's projected to within the media, where we think we have overnight millionaires, when it's 20 years in the making, and a lot of sacrifices might have been made for that. So you need to find ways of managing your money better and look at ways of saying, is what I am doing really helping to financially alleviate my family? Or is it digging us deeper into a financial situation that I might not be able to get out of?
Great. Another question that has come up is on pitching to investors. Some people have shared, some investors have shared that they are not keen on investing in family businesses, or keen, especially a husband and wife setup, I think because of the governance issues that you've talked about. What 2-3 tips quickly that we could quickly fix as a family to make sure when we go in front of investors, who goes in front of the investors, and what can we say that will punch the point that we are investable?
Well, first and foremostly, you have to have a good idea. Secondly, you have to show them that you have the ability to work together. So whether it's husband and wife team, do you have the skills necessary that are needed within that business in the context of operations? And are you filling in these positions with yourselves because you're competent, or because you just want to say it's Mr. and Mrs. who are doing this business? Secondly, you have to prove to them that you are a family business that has family governance in place, and your professionalism is second to none. So that means your family governance as well as your corporate governance has to be really stellar. And then thirdly, you have to also then be able to prove that as a family business, the success rate of family businesses is bigger and higher than any other form of business globally. And you are like any other family business. If you have a great idea, you have great financials, you have great governance on corporate as well as in family governance, then I see no reason why an investor would say no. But if they sense any sort of power play, conflict, and the issues that usually mar families, they're obviously going to think, well, I can put my money there, but then what happens if a few years down the line it goes south? Is my money really safe? Are these people that are anchored? Do they have a foundation that we can trust?
That's right. So I like what you said about dialogue, communications, and managing expectations, and the James Bond leadership. And in some cases, I feel we build these James Bonds in our families. We put them too high on the pedestals, and communication breaks down in families. So I think the question that is coming out there is what examples can you give? How do you help a family in a case of conflict or crisis? What are the 2-3 tips that you can give to help turn that situation around? And in your article, you talked about safe spaces in terms of communications. Maybe you could touch on that as well. I really appreciated when you talked about creating safe spaces for communication.
Okay. So you must understand that everything is governed by relationships. Even business itself is governed by relationships. When people say put in place corporate governance, is they want transparency. They want to be able to say, I can trust you because I see these metrics in place that say I can trust you. Family is no different, only that it's a lot more complex because there's a lot of emotions and experiences that we've gone through together that have now diluted our opinions of ourselves and each other. And so these relationships now, when they translate into the business world, can be extremely difficult. Communication is important within family members, and I don't know how I can emphasize this to everybody. Talk about it. There should be topics that should not be, oh, these are not to be talked about, because these become the skeletons in our closets. If there are any emotive topics, if there are topics that we feel that we circumvent, they will come out when we are angry. They will come out when we are having a professional business relationship, and they could potentially damage our business relationship. Creating safe spaces means that when you're communicating with people, you allow them to be themselves, to voice their opinions. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to agree with all their opinions. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to go with what they are suggesting, but it means that they feel safe enough to suggest something, and you have the opportunity to respond, and you have the opportunity to address. When we do not communicate with each other, we are becoming emotionally constipated. And I think we have seen this globally when we talk about mental health and wellness. And we have seen big name celebrities taking a step back and saying, I can't do this anymore, it's affecting my mental health. Mental health is not a fad. It is the way we live our lives. Relationships are not something we can wash away. Some of us, we are related through blood. Sometimes we're related through intermarriages. We're related through different ways. Our emotions, however, are things we can talk about. And sometimes you find that James Bond leadership will go in thinking they're doing what's best for the family, and they're the only one that can do it because they know how to do it, because they haven't given a chance to other family members. They have for the longest time probably carried the burden of doing it, and they think that it's all on them. You have to find ways of communicating and letting them know they're not alone. You have to find ways of showing them that you're also competent and you can be someone that they can count on, so that they don't have to feel they're carrying the burden alone. And sometimes you need to ask, why do you feel like you're carrying the burden alone? And when there's conflicts over something, it could be something unsaid, something that is anchored on an event that happened. Trust is broken. If you find there's a relationship that's been broken by trust, have conversations where you say, you made me feel like this, or I felt like this, and I felt like this because of. Don't go in there and want to change somebody over one conversation. Be empathetic to the other person you're communicating with. Be able to know that when you are on the same team, you can score. You can identify the team members who are great at doing what they're doing, and they can make an impactful difference, and they can get you to the next level. But when you refuse to share the ball, when you refuse to acknowledge when the mistakes have been made and rectifications are trying to be made, we become the sole players on a pitch, playing against other teams that are stronger, more organized, and know what they're doing. We have seen so many family businesses fail because the family itself has been the reason the family business is just not working. When you employ family members, consider this. Don't give a job because they don't have a job. Give a job because they're competent, because you want to put them in a position where they can take the family business to the next level. If you think they're not competent, you are better off giving them pocket money sitting at home and hiring somebody who's competent to do the job, because that person's competency is going to bring in more money into the family business. Whereas in the other family, the family member might not be competent and might bring down the family business. Be very, very clear on why you make decisions, when you make decisions. Be very, very clear on why you choose to do things, and communicate. Create safe spaces, more so for your next gens. It's a very difficult
That's true.
conversation the world is having right now about next gens, where the older generations feel like, I can't trust my son or my daughter.
Yes.
Yet we do the best to send them to the best schools, get them the best education. Their failure is not completely 100% their own. We contribute to it. How do we contribute to it? We need to question our methods. We need to question our relationships with them. And we need to be able to trust them. The hardest thing is to hold a baby in your arms and then 16 years later be on the passenger seat while they're driving the car. Remember that always, because you're still going to
Yes.
remember the little baby and you're going to be like,
Always, always, always.
yeah,
Thank you, Tsitsi. You know, our time has terribly run out, so I'm going to give a leeway because of tech issues and internet issues to
no problem at
allow you to
all.
answer two more questions. I'll read a comment that Charles Katande has said. Tsitsi, I like the way you've smartly debunked the black tax concept, and that's is meant to denigrate us as Africans. So what's wrong with helping others? So that's what. So, and then there's a question that has come through. I think two of them actually. The James Bond. I think you've touched on, and someone had talked about having a brother who's a James Bond, and they don't have this particular skill, and they don't want to get involved in the business. But how can I help my family business? So I don't have the skill that's needed, but I still want to help. And this is linking to another question. What happens when some of the siblings do not want to be part of the family business? Is there a way of encouraging? Because I've seen businesses that have died actually because no one was interested. No one was interested. The first generation, the parent has built an amazing business, but they can't get their second generation, their children, or even the cousins, the siblings, cousins to come through and rescue the business. So another comment, same story. My mom always tells me, and my sibling not to get involved in the family business or shared business. Any comment of that? So it's a case whereby someone wants to get into the business. How do we get? I think let's focus on how do we get people to be interested in the business, because some businesses are actually dying because there's no.
You know, when you buy shares on the stock market and you own a bit of shares in that business, do you have to be working for it?
No.
Right. But you're obviously an invested shareholder, right? Because your money is there.
Mm-hmm.
So if Bertha starts a business and it's a booming business, it's excellent. There are so many people who don't want to be entrepreneurs that are brilliant at running businesses and in careers. And they can grow businesses to incredible heights. And they get paid, remunerated good money to take businesses to brilliant heights. And the owners, they get to benefit from the dividends from the business going to brilliant heights. Being an owner does not necessarily mean you have to be an employee. That goes back to that three-circle model. If you remember, I'll just share my screen again briefly. Most family businesses that you're talking about are probably in this stage where the founder is the owner, employee, and family, and they want their next gen to join the family business, and the next gen is like, no, I'm not interested. But they want to leave their shares to their next gen. What you need to do is you need to teach responsible owners. You need to teach responsible stewards, people who know how to hire the right people to run the business, people who understand how the business runs, but just don't want to be working for the business, people who can make decisions that influence what the business does, how it does it, but do not have to work for the family business. Businesses have closed down. We have lost a lot of industries because owners believe that if my child doesn't want to be part of the family business, what's the point? The point is, when you build that business, you are servicing a community, you are servicing an industry. If you give up on that business, that is your choice. Don't blame it on your children. You can teach them to be responsible owners. They can be owners who understand how the business runs without ever stepping into and running the business and hiring the right people to run that business. Ownership does not always equal to being an employee. There are people who are great at running businesses and taking them to great heights. And if you are making good money from your shares at whatever company you have shareholding with, would you want to upset that? You're just making
Yeah.
sure that you're just making sure that it keeps on running and it's got the right people. So you're making sure that it's got the right board appointments. You're making sure that it's representing your name and your legacy in the right way. But you don't have to work for the family business. You can be in another country while the business runs and it still reports to you. I'm sure you can even look at family businesses like Econet. Um, I'm not sure if they have any family members who are actively working within the business, but you see that Strive has taken the chairmanship role. He no longer is an active employee that works directly for the family business that was first established. And we have to learn that as smaller businesses, as we grow, that they might be generation upon generation that might not be interested in being employed by the business, but that doesn't make the business any less of an investment vehicle. It doesn't make it any less of something that a family can still participate in. It's just that they don't work for it.
Time is not on our side, and yet the conversation was just heating up. But I am happy to say that this is the first of many conversations that we'll have in this cycle of the innovation boot camps where we can carry on. Tsitsi, thank you so much. So many nuggets to walk away with. I picked up dialogue. I understood the importance of family governments in terms of improving. I understood that it's important to build a culture of communicating well and providing safe spaces to speak so that we are able to build these multi-million-dollar businesses. I think statistics showing the biggest family-owned business is Walmart, with 2.3 million. That's what that I always like to benchmark. That's where we are saying we want to go forward. So I want to thank you for this time. I want to thank everyone. Please send in your questions. We will be able to send them through to Tsitsi. And I know there were questions on how to find Tsitsi, what is her mission as African family firms, and we will be able to share that information with you on the feedback emails that everybody gets at the end. So we will share more information on who African family firms is, what is their mission, and I think from what Tsitsi has shared with us, you've gotten a good gist of what they're all about. Tsitsi, thank you so much. We thank you for the work that you're doing, and we encourage you, and we will continue working and engaging you to push the need to build impact entrepreneurs that can build generational businesses.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please, we will catch you next week on Thursday. If you want to enroll in any of our programs, once again, please go to our social media platforms. You will be able to contact the program leader or the business coach of the country where you are in and join us and build the skills and learn the tools to build a business with impact. Thank you so much and have a good evening. And please, let's remain to stay safe. Good night, good afternoon, good morning from wherever you are. Bye-bye.